Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those of you who are joining us from North America, and welcome to our webinar, FinTech on Main Street, How to Conquer Data and Live Automation in Banking and Financial Services. My name is Karen Bradbury, and I am the FS Sector Lead for Invest Northern Ireland. Invest Northern Ireland is the regional economic development agency for Northern Ireland, and our role is to grow the economy here. And really, we're doing that by helping businesses, both new and existing businesses, compete internationally, and also by attracting new inward investment to Northern Ireland. My role within Invest Northern Ireland is to support the development of the financial services sector here. And for us, that includes FinTech. And actually, FinTech has been a huge area of success for Northern Ireland, a huge area of growth. So my role is to support the development of the sector here, both competing locally and internationally, and also to work with a number of our work directly with a number of our international investors who are located here. I'm delighted to be joined today by three representatives from our thriving FinTech cluster, Brendan McCarthy from Analytics Engines, Matt Flenley from Detactics, and Andy Wallace of the Robot Exchange. Each of them will be giving a presentation of their company and what their companies do, and also include some of the data challenges that they've been solving for the global FS industry. We will then follow with the Q&A session, so please do add any questions that you may have in the chat function throughout the presentations, and we will get to them at the end. Firstly, though, I would like to give you some information about Northern Ireland and the FinTech ecosystem here, and really give you some idea of why we're doing this presentation today, and give you an idea of what's happening in Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland, for those of you who maybe aren't aware of Northern Ireland, it is a region of the UK. It's in fact it's the smallest region of the UK with 1.86 million people, which is 2% of the UK population. However, it is a really young and enthusiastic population, with 47% of the population being under the age of 44. It's also an extremely well-educated population. We pride ourselves on our education system. Consistently over many years, we have been the top performing region in the UK at our national exams at both 16 and 18. So our exams at 16 are GCSEs, and at 18 are our A-levels, and we've consistently outperformed other regions in the UK at that level. We have a really strong STEM culture in terms of primary school. Children in the age between 4 and 11, they are the best in Europe and 7th in the world at maths, and also a strong representation at post-primary level when we're looking again at those 16 exams at 16 and at 18. At 42% of all GCSE entries are in STEM subjects, and 40% of students have studied a STEM subject at A-level. We also have a strong higher and further education sector, and over 74% of our school leavers go on to further and higher education. And particularly relevant to this sector, we've over 5,000 graduates in financial services related subjects, be that in business management and maths, and also strong engineering. And in terms of kind of the Northern Ireland as a region, and when we look at people and the reasons to invest here, access to talent and the enthusiasm of our people here is one of our key attractions and one of our key competitive advantages. So when we look at the financial and professional services in Northern Ireland, it's one of our key employers and an area of real growth. So we've over 40,000 people working in the sector here. Most of those, in the biggest proportion, are in retail banking. Over 11,000 work in retail banking, but also a sizable number working in insurance, accountancy and legal services, and also in funds and other financial services. Legal services and FinTech, and 7,000 work in FinTech, and legal services and FinTech have been huge areas of growth for us. When we say we've always had a financial services sector, a lot of that has been very retail focused and locally focused. We have a number of indigenous local banks And when you look at that 11,000, a large part of them or a large number are employed in those areas. However, where we've seen significant growth has really been through inward investment in this area, with the companies such as Citi, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, Liberty Mutual, all setting up centres here. And the growth in the sector in the last 20 years has really been as a result of new inward investment. And they're doing all sorts of different activities here, but a large part of that is in technology. So the growth of the fintech sector has been a huge, as I've said before, has been a real area of success for us in terms of the skills and in terms of attracting new investment in the area, but also the growth of our local companies as well. So we have a number of global recognitions and reference points that we use in terms of fintech. We've been the #1 location globally for the number of fintech investment projects over the last 5 to 10 years, and also recently been ranked as top 3 in the FDI locations of the future after London and Singapore. And that's really a mix of investors, both, as I said, companies such as Citi, as you can see there, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, so financial services companies having tech functions here, but also tech companies supplying the financial services industry. So, and that includes Detactix and Analytics Engine and the Robot Exchange, who we'll be hearing from shortly, but also companies such as FD and Alchemy and companies who are supplying into the global financial services sector. So you can see here in this is just the breadth of the ecosystem that the fintech and that has developed in fintech, and that's a combination. If you look in the top left-hand corner, of incumbents and large companies that such as Aflac and Citi, but also then and also technology companies on the top right who are supplying into financial services, and then also our scale-up and startups who have started up in Northern Ireland. We then also have the wider areas in terms of support functions around that, and also the education sector and the government and the support. This actually came about as a part of research that was undertaken by FinTech NI, and that's the industry association for Northern Ireland in fintech, and really has grown out of a real sense of collaboration in the sector here. And one of the key, along with this map, really mapping out who all is in the sector, one of the key points of that research, one of the key findings was the depth of fintech here. So there's in terms of the number who are employed in financial services and also in technology, 1 in 5 of those are actually in a fintech role, and that's the highest concentration in the UK compared to other regions. So in terms of the fintech clusters and the growth, where we are seeing is that we're really finding real clusters that have developed in really the last 10 years and depth of expertise. In trading tech, and capital markets and in trading technology, you have companies, as I said before, Citi and Chicago Mercantile Exchange have really set up they've set up their centres here. They're employing over 3,000 people across trading technology. So there's real depth of expertise in trading technology. In reg tech and compliance, and also in AI and advanced analytics, those are 2 real growth areas where a number of the local companies have really been coming together and using AI and advanced analytics to solve data quality, data personalization, and finding new sources of data as a source of competitive advantage. And that's where there's a real cluster has really grown there. And InsurTech, that's building on some of the work that Allstate and Liberty, who've been in Northern Ireland. Allstate have just recently celebrated their 20-year anniversary for being here. But companies such as Aflac have really joined that cluster, and there's a real depth of expertise in InsurTech, particularly in the area of cyber. So Northern Ireland is really developing as an ecosystem, is really developing clusters of expertise in these areas. And why? What has been the fundamental part of that? I guess in our experience, these would be the four main things. But the most important or the most fundamental part of it is collaboration. I touched on earlier about the scale of Northern Ireland. I mean, it is a small region within the UK. However, that brings many advantages in that we all know each other. They say sometimes we've either worked with each other or we're related to each other. But the real desire to work together to develop the ecosystem here is really what is driving the development of the ecosystem here and the growth, which is great to see and has been very, very rewarding. Also, research excellence. We have two universities in the region, both Queen's University Belfast and then University of Ulster, and their research excellence, both in the areas of cyber and also in AI, has really helped underpin the development of the ecosystem here. I mentioned earlier access to talent, and if you ask any of our investors why they invest in Northern Ireland and why they reinvest, access to quality talent, exceptionally qualified talent is fundamental. And recently in the pandemic and things that have been going on through COVID, the resilience of the people in Northern Ireland, and many of our investors have said that has been testament to their continued success and resilience. And lastly, underpinning it is access to funding and government support. At Invest Northern Ireland, business development and is absolutely critical and core to what we're looking to achieve. So we are underpinning that and very keen to support the growth. That's all that I have to say about Northern Ireland. I hope that I've given you some idea and some sparked some interest maybe to explore it further. I'm delighted to have three companies with us today and who are going to give their experiences of how they have conquered data and how they've approached live automation in banking and financial services. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Brenda McCarthy from Analytics Engines.
Hi, thank you for your time today. My name is Brenda McCarthy. I am part of Analytics Engines. We are a bespoke data analytics, machine learning and AI consultancy based in Belfast in Northern Ireland. We're a team of 20 plus people with backgrounds in electronic engineering, computer science, physics, digital design, networking, augmented reality and data science. What really brings us together is that we're a team of problem solvers in that we are disciplined in our execution and focused on delivering success and business value to our customers. As you can see, in 2020, we were named one of the UK's most innovative AI companies to watch. So what do? We do two things. Bespoke AI and data analytics solutions focused on driving business transformation and creating value-added data. The second is a combination of a number of projects which we've successfully delivered recently. Minerva is our product. It's a multimodal search and discovery insights engine, which I will touch on later. But first, I will touch on two projects we believe are relevant and interesting in relation to the audience today. We've recently completed a project with a UK funding body, Innovate UK, which is responsible for over 8 billion in annual funding. What we did for Innovate UK was really around their core responsibility of preventing fraud. What we've done is when someone makes an application for funding, we match that application against all previous applications and analyze the application text against tens of billions of different sentences contained in those prior applications to see similarities, and then through the user interface, highlight results where there are matches in either structure or text to assess if this application has previously sought funding. You can see that in the right-hand side with the visualization. The second stage of the process is the matching of subject matter experts to the assessment against those applications. Historically, what was happened here was you get a subject matter expert or a bank of subject matter experts, and a team of people would say that person is best to assess this application. What we've done is bring machine learning and AI to that and taken that manual process from 4 days with mid-80s accuracy to 4 minutes with high 90s accuracy. So ultimately, faster, more accurate use of machine learning that really demonstrating how we can transform the underlying business process. So really a great example, we believe, of where together with our customer, we have brought innovative machine learning and data analytics to transform the business and the business outcomes. Anomaly detection. So the second customer project I'd like to talk to you about today is around anomaly detection, and specifically how anomaly detection works within an audit environment. Working with the Northern Ireland Audit Office to bring in all their data, which is in multiple different file structures, and then normalize that data in a way that we can start to interrogate and look for information with that data. The focus was around anomaly detection. For example, if a transaction with a supplier was posted at 2 p.m. on the 25th of December for 3 times the value of that normal supplier invoice. While that may be a bit extreme, it gives a flavor of exactly what we're looking for. So it's really around anomalies across the suppliers within organizations or across organizations. But the key here is providing insights to the auditor and a more comprehensive and holistic view of what things are happening out there within the current audit environment. The value this obviously brought to the Audit Office is the ability to start to see new patterns or trends and new things that they may want to investigate. But also, as you can see from the visuals on the right-hand side, to present this in a way that is easily understood by the auditors to assist and help in guide areas of investigation. The final piece I wanted to talk to you about today is our product Minerva. It is an enterprise network search and discovery and insights engine, highlighting patterns in data and relationships across data. The challenge that Minerva addresses here is the existence of data in multiple different silos. Minerva allows you to ingest and combine all those multiple data silos into a single place to understand what that data means, to match it up, and then to search within that data to get a much better insight of your total data universe. The other capability that we deliver with Minerva is that once you've established a pattern of interest, you can now get Minerva to automatically monitor and search for recurrences of that pattern and interest, and then most importantly, alert you to the next new match. So really, what does Minerva deliver to the enterprise? It allows you to combine all your data. It allows you to search all your data. It allows you to analyze all your data as a single data set in your environment. By bringing that data into a single view, we're able to understand it better. We're able to look across multiple different data sets, bringing it into one place where you can understand it, understand the patterns, and visualize it way using Knowledge Graph. Minerva allows us to break down those silos and create actionable insights. I now want to show you a very short demo of Minerva in action. I wanted to take the opportunity today to run through a short demo of our search and discovery platform, Minerva. One of the things that we think makes Minerva unique is the ability to search for patterns of behavior rather than individual entities. In this short demo, we're looking for PPE contracts that have been awarded to non-PPE companies. With that in mind, we're going to jump over to one of the results that this search has previously returned for us. For data security reasons, we've anonymized the data, but we'd be happy to go into this in more detail with you if you'd like to arrange a meeting with us following this demo. In the graph, you can see that the company has been awarded a PPE contract despite the company itself not being a PPE company. From there, we can start to explore persons of significant control and directors of the company. In particular, we want to explore this purple node here, which is a person of significant control. By expanding out on that individual, we can see their associated relationships and we can see other entities that they are connected to. In this case, we can see that this individual has made 2 political donations, and both of which were to the Conservative Party. We can also see that this individual is a trustee of a UK charity. By exploring that link further, we can see that another trustee on that charity is actually a Conservative MP. So as you can see, we've been able to build up a robust picture of this person's network in a very short amount of time, and all based on a very simple initial query. Thanks for your time today. And as a closing, we'd invite you to register for our early adopter program to allow you to understand how Minerva can combine all your different data silos into one place where you can understand, act, and predict and visualize the linkages and patterns within your data silos.
Thanks, Brendan. It's great to hear about your work that you're doing with Innovate UK and also with the Northern Ireland Audit Office. I'd now like to introduce Matt Flenley of Datactics.
Hello everyone, I'm Matt Flenley from Datactics, and I'm delighted to be with you today for this webinar. I'd like to thank Invest Northern Ireland for pulling it together, and to my fellow Northern Irish fintechs who are demonstrating the capabilities and innovative approaches across the whole sector from our island over the Atlantic. So before I get into who we are, let's talk about the problem that everyone faces. Messy data is everywhere, it says there, and yet there are thousands of bright young minds eager to make use of it. It reminds me very much of moving house when I was younger. Packing up started off okay, with books in a box marked books and so on, but eventually a combination of tiredness and sheer effort led to a lot of boxes marked miscellaneous, or shortened to MISC. This is the case of the data debt right now across every industry, but particularly painful in financial services where regulators demand perfection and customers deserve good experiences. Now at Datactics, we've heard from many people who've tried leaving it where it is to preserve it in all of its context, or moving it all to new data lakes, but then finding that they've essentially got one big box marked MISC. It's a major problem because some elements of differentiation between data sources are important, like links to maiden names or previous addresses, whereas others aren't, like typos, entry errors, or fat finger copy and paste errors. Or my favorite error of getting everyone the same date of birth because that was the date that the bank systems were computerized. As it says on the slide, manual error rates are high, and that leads to a lot of data preparation or wrangling time by data stewards who are much more intent on delivering business value through intelligent analytics. Now, this was the case with an asset management client of ours. They needed a single consolidated view across their systems to be able to understand the risk to the business if any one of those factors was impacted. Importantly, they needed to retain all the distinct context of fund data, asset data, and tenant data, but at the same time unite them for their analytics team to build reports and insights from. This was the struggle. Their analytics team was instead spending its time standardizing the data to make sense of all the different nuances. And they had a level of unseen risk exposure because they simply couldn't get the data right. Well, this story is a pretty common one in data. So what makes Datactics different, unique even, as the supplier to firms like this client? It's because this has historically been a task left to programmers and coders in IT. There's a lot of rule building to be done, much of it in SQL or in code-heavy systems that aren't the domain of the people in business lines whose knowledge is in risk oversight, for example. Our platform is aimed at this latter group of people, leveraging our user-friendly no-code tools for data profiling, matching, measurement, fixing, automation, and in that last icon in the pink box, AI predicting. This last piece is helping firms to overcome the problem of manually reviewing millions of possible matches by using explainable AI methods to ensure that any matches presented in this way can predict the likelihood of a close match being a true match. We've developed a fully explainable AI module so that these matches can be understood, and that at all stages we maintain a human in the loop approach to avoid it being an opaque box, an unexplainable set of decisions. The beneficiaries of these platforms include the data stewards who use it, but also the business lines on the right-hand side of your screen, who can rely on and trust in the data for a whole range of run-the-bank activities, from regulatory reporting, to analytics, to data migration and transformation, and of course, for extremely manual, labor-heavy, know your customer and anti-money laundering. Thank you so much for your time today. I would love to hear from you about your data challenges and how we might be able to help you. You might have a fully functioning data quality and data governance program, or you might only be starting out on that journey. But whatever stage of that journey you're on, I would be glad to sit down over a coffee, however virtually, and listen to you talk about your data. Many thanks.
Thanks, Matt. I love the idea of a big box of data called MISC, and look forward to exploring maybe some more of that in our Q&A session later. And I'd now like to introduce Andy Wallace of the Robot Exchange.
Well, hi, welcome. My name's Andy Wallace. I'm the CEO of the Robot Exchange, and we're a scale-up business based in Northern Ireland, working very much in two areas. Firstly, robotic process automation, which we'll move on to, as well as creating a number of software as a service platforms that we sell to a number of clients, many of whom are really big within the UK, but some of them are also global. So highlights would be the Coca-Cola Hellenic and Incora, who are an interesting company who merged recently with a big supplier out in the US called Wesco, and they manage the supply chains of Rolls-Royce. Currently within the UK itself, we have two teams. First team is our core development center based in Lisbon, heavily supported by InvestNI. We have 18 developers currently working there, and we source our developers mostly through the universities. Two fantastic universities, both Ulster University, but also Queen's. We sponsor a number of prizes for the top developers, and we work really, really hard to keep the talent that we attract. As you see from our client list, we've got a number of diverse segments and verticals, from retail, but mostly financial services. In addition, we recently got Crown Commercial Service Supplier authorised, so we started our first public sector contract within the UK, and we expect many more. So in terms of why we're different to a lot of robotic process automation companies out there, in terms of the commercials, we have a lot more flexibility. So we own our own tech. We're not reliant completely on reseller, UiPath, Blue Prism, or Automate Anywhere. That enables me to be really punchy around the license. So a lot of flexibility there. That gives you a cost per bot reduction. There's no upfront capex with us. The way that we do our projects, we offer a free proof of concept. Again, with very innovative commercials. So a couple of our clients we've taken as a per transaction, for instance. And we, with all of our clients, regardless of the size, we deliver return on investment within 12 months, which is really unusual for any tech project. In terms of other things that we do, we like to help our clients with their digital transformation. RPA generally is a foot in the door, and then we look to expand our services. We're full stack developers from back end, front end, as well as AI. We're creating increasingly AI-based chatbots for very much customer service. We're able to supplement your already stretched IT departments who generally are working on already prioritized projects. We automate, increasingly looking to automate our RPA technology. So with InvestNI's support through an innovation grant, we've started our main innovation project, which is looking to create automations automatically. I know that's a mouthful. As a full stack development group, we are very much focused on undertaking API development first, if possible, and we'll use our RPA technology to supplement that if you have legacy platforms you're unable to automate normally. Again, we'll deliver software as a service or premise-based solutions. In terms of location geographically, we offer remote development. We also have robotic support. So no longer do we wait for clients to tell us when things go wrong. Our robots are monitoring, and we increasingly teach them to resolve issues before clients are even aware. Despite that, we're ITIL based. We've got 20 ops dev in Northern Ireland, and we have about 10 people within the mainland of the UK. And then those guys are mainly business development, account management, as well as business analysis. We deliver through our platforms up to the second MI on how your robots are performing. In terms of how we add to your business, so in terms of scalability, we're able to add robots really quickly. Our tech just works. When our competitors are talking about their tech, they're very much talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and I feel that they've missed quite a big segment of the industries that we're currently working within. who just want their RPA to work and work consistently, and that's what we produce. We're able to automate your legacy really fast. We can add platforms fast, and that allows your internal IT to focus on the priorities you've already been through that process with. Again, our tech called Devol is being invested in to allow the automation of RPA, which will help us then offer a migration route for UiPath, Automate Anywhere, or Blue Prism customers away from their license-heavy solutions. So how does RPA benefit data and analysis, or AI? It's always a little bit confusing, I think. The term AI is bandied around, and with a lot of my both current customers but potential customers, you mention AI and they're always excited, but very rarely do they actually understand what they mean. And I tend to start talking to them more around predictive analysis. So, you know, how can we help? So we allow you to be clear on what data is being copied. Our robots are able to produce reports on activities as well as a full audit trail. We can deliver multiple robots to work on your particular migration or your particular transformation of your data, and we can do that really, really quickly if we realize it's an issue. There's a low exceptions. So Devol RPA provides the ability to self-learn. So if the robot makes a mistake or understands there's an exception, it will write that without having to come back into development to do that. Gives you the ability to test and learn. So our licensing flexibility means that you can roll out as many test environments or user acceptance environments you want with no cost. There's low system change, as well as allowing you to look at structured data as well as other peripheral data sources. So our robots, through our PDF automatic reader, for instance, will strip out any data it considers to be useful or important out of any of your sources of data, be they embedded within Excel, Word, PDFs, or older database structures. There's no requirement for any IT development or any large CapEx investment. The robot interacts exactly with the software you've already tested and regression tested. Lastly, we produce a full reporting suite. And this is something that users get given in terms of being able to log in and actually view exactly what your robots are doing. And that can be applied to any one of your processes. Again, we use a pretty traditional agile service as we deliver our products. We very much have a project-based as well. So, and our clients are considered to be major stakeholders within that process. Again, talking about the commercial models itself, I always was frustrated when I used to buy IT services around what was offered in terms of that big upfront CapEx, as well as ongoing monthly. So we are prepared to do a by task. We're prepared to do a cost reduction model, as well as stretching out any kind of development costs over a 3-year period. We very much want to partner with our potential clients and deliver a software as a service revenue model. So thank you for your time today, much appreciate it. As you can hear, I'm not from Northern Ireland myself, but I've worked with guys in Northern Ireland for 10 years and I love the place. And as advice, Belfast is so much nicer than Dublin. We would love the opportunity to help you identify a suitable process for automation, as well as assist with formulating a potential business case. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy, and thank you for such a strong endorsement of Northern Ireland. It's great to hear. I would like to invite all of the panelists to switch on their cameras again, please, and we can move into our Q&A session. And can I ask anyone, the audience, please, to keep the questions coming through in the chat function. Thank you for the questions submitted so far. First up, I guess, Brendan, a question for you is, what do you see as the ultimate reward of good data? What do you see as the benefits?
I think from what we learned with our customers and also what we learned with Minerva, is that the ultimate reward is actionable insights, in that being able to use data as a business tool, to be able to say, okay, I can now do something with that data, and I can either transform my business, I can grow my revenue lines, I can find cost reductions, or I can avoid fraud. All these things. It's the ability for data to drive insights that you possibly wouldn't have seen previously. You know, I don't think there's anything such thing as bad data. It's just data that we haven't really collectively had a good go at this stage, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Matt, you talked about messy data, and you know, you mentioned the particular pain of messy data and within the FS industry particularly. What do you see as main things that are holding people back from actually taking the challenge on of sorting it out? You know, why do they keep leaving it in a big box called MISC?
Well, I think similarly with moving house, the issue is generally data fatigue. You know, didn't we do that already? Mr. Incredible, I always love his role in that fantastic series of films. That right at the start, he says, no matter how many times you save the world, it always manages to get back in jeopardy again. And sometimes I just want it to stay saved. A lot of the time, it's similar with fixing data. The truth is that as long as it's approached as a one-off event, it'll always be a problem. The only way around it is to implement a continuous data quality measurement and improvement program. But that is much less exciting than doing transformation and analytics. Somehow fixing data manages to be both absolutely critical and extremely dull all at once. Secondly, is that for a long time, it's been the sole preserve of coders and of programmers and internal IT. Storage of data management and quality has often been at arm's length from the business. So it's been a difficult and critical and distant problem. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. And Andy, you know, we've talked about the challenges in sorting data, you know, whether it's messy and as Brendan said, it's not so much that there's good or bad data, but you mentioned in your presentation, you know, the challenges around data transformation and legacy systems. So how can the Robot Exchange help clients transform their data and integrate legacy systems into AI or data analysis solutions?
Well, I think the challenge with data per se is that actually I think there is some bad data out there, but it is complex to resolve that. It also, everybody knows that they need to do something about it, but very few people actually know the benefit of doing something. And I think in terms of the Robot Exchange, what we can provide is really almost like a proof of concept way of transforming the data before you then would productionize it. So it gives you that opportunity to start to eat the elephant bite by bite, by automating some of your legacy, doing the transform through a robotic process until you eventually are able to articulate the business benefit of doing that, and then invest in some of the more industry leading platforms like the other guys are discussing today.
Okay. Sorry, there's a question in the coming from the audience. I guess Brendan, could you take that? Sorry, I just
I think it was.
Sorry, I just read it out because I'm not sure that everyone can hear it or has seen it, but it's presumably all your technologies require good data to do their job. How do you practically deal with the challenge of incomplete or poor source data hitting your technologies?
I think that myself and Matt definitely would be out of a job if we required good data, because that's what we hope to get as the end outcome. And it's interesting. It's a great question because I think there's many different perspectives to it. I think what we look at is that there, as I said, we don't believe there's anything such as bad data. We believe that, you know, there is value in the noise, which people would have said, oh, that's bad data. And the way I describe that is we look at it as if you have something under a microscope. If you've gone into the highest level you can go, and if you think about it, you can see an ink dot, right? Now, that ink dot could represent a perfect record. But if you then move right out, you actually see that ink dot is part of a banknote. If you have no understanding of that ink dot until you actually scroll out, or you magnify, demagnify to understand the relationship. So that ink dot in itself is perfect data, but actually it could be actually useless. It's that it's understanding it as part of a bigger data set. It really comes down to what is the use case that you want to do. Is like, you know, if I took Matt and ourselves, we both would look at the same data, but we would have different use cases that we want to drive an outcome from. We would be looking at with Minerva, what is the relationship? So that ink dot, what universe does that exist in, and how can I create a better, more multifaceted view of that data? Whereas Matt may be saying, I just want to really understand that that ink dot is exactly that ink dot. Is that fair?
I think that's a fair point. And I think, as you say, I mean, the use case and the purpose of the data, you want to be able to trust it fundamentally. If you've got business applications, you've got regulatory reporting, you want to be able to make sure that you're not sending a whole lot of junk over to a regulator. Of, you know, no one wants to send rubbish to the police. You know, that's the important part. So yeah, Brendan's absolutely right. If all the data was great before it got to us, we would both be in trouble. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to get involved with people who have a combination of legacy systems, some new systems, some external data feeds. They're all painting a slightly different picture, but collectively, you actually have a much more complete record for your regulatory reporting campaign, for your digital transformation, where you're saying, I want to move everything from these 8 systems onto these 2 systems. Yeah, that's where the real magic happens, is in that transformation of a whole load of different stuff that's almost impossible to understand into something you can actually work with, whether it's for Brendan, you know, to be do actionable insights, or whether it's on our side on the regulatory reporting piece.
Have you any thoughts on that, Andy, as well? Have you
No, not particularly, I'm afraid. In terms of the data side of things, again, I think that the challenge that a lot of organisations that I've both worked with but for is really it just looks such a big piece of work to take on initially. And the reality is that you need to chunk up into bite-sized pieces in order to enable the success of it.
Okay. So there's another question in from the audience, and this may be more for you, Andy, in terms of, can you talk about your experience in developing, and possibly for you all, in developing governance models for mid-sized organisations that are starting the RPA journey, and specifically what are the pros and cons of various models? Does that something you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 2 models generally that we experience, and there's one that we recommend and one that we generally don't, there's very much a legacy product around top-down management of RPA, which involves an initial requirements capture, prioritization capture of a number of processes. And this is the type of product you see Deloitte's managing. They put in some young, very bright interns who produce a big PowerPoint deck. And then at the end of that exhausting 6-month period, they then come up with a plan that says we will deliver on this priority over the next 3 years. It will cost you £5 million, but it will save you 50. So it's still, you know, still a valid process. But the challenge you have with that is RPA change very much impacts human beings, and the key to getting beyond that human conservatism around change is very much getting that buy-in. So we tend to look at bottom up. So we will engage with subject matter experts. We will enable and sit with them to try and extract out of them the knowledge that we need in order to automate, and then deliver that benefit back to them and their day job, as well as actually getting a decent high-level stakeholder who understands the benefits but also the risks. And I guess the gorilla in the room is always, what do you do about IT when you've got RPA projects? And the way that I've tried to do this and get beyond that barrier is actually, are there some mundane IT projects that we can take as a priority to build that consensus from IT? Because if you can't win IT over, then you have got no hope of getting RPA as a success in your projects.
Okay. And I guess it is all about that human connection in the end, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because humans are quite rightly fearful of changes that automate, and if the change management process is strong enough, the stakeholder is believable enough, that actually that human will move on to do less mundane menial tasks, then that's a key benefit.
Yeah. Okay. Matt, have you come across any unexpected benefits of solving data quality problems?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it builds on that point there about culture and people. Ultimately, we all know why we started out trying to work with the data. It's because we had very, very valid business commercial reasons. We either want to make money or save money. So the benefits, the unexpected benefits, actually are around people, empowering business teams, enhancing job satisfaction, and then boosting retention of employees. I was reading a thing that McKinsey pulled together that over 500,000 days of managers' time is wasted when people can't make decisions quickly and efficiently, which is in no small part down to the information that they have at their disposal. On the second point, for better job satisfaction, sometimes the type of data and simply how untidy it is, how much of it is in a box marked MISC, causes a lot of stress. There's a fantastically famous stat in data nerd world from Forbes around the amount of time that data scientists spend cleaning data, which is somewhere around 80% from a study of data scientists. Again, that can be extremely unfulfilling work for people who didn't study to learn how to become a data janitor. They studied to figure out how to do sentiment analysis and complex models. So they don't want to have to do that other stuff, and the more they have to, the more bored they get. And thus, of course, if they're satisfied on that last point, then if you've managed to fix all of those problems in an automated way, they're less likely to want to leave. So employee retention, on average, costs 33% less than employee replacement, particularly for data roles, which are usually pretty high paid. So if you've got trusted data, if people aren't having to do all of the manual work that is often employed by people, again, either brought in from consultancies or just working with Excel, it'll give people who are already at your company, who you hired to do all the fancy stuff, less of a reason to head out through the revolving door.
Thanks, Matt. So I have another question from the audience. This one is for Brendan. How does it, for analytics engines, how does the technology differ from something like Quantexa?
That's a great question. I suppose from our point of view, if you looked at them both at the 10,000 or 30,000 foot level, they're similar. Okay. Really, where we are is we've taken a number of different things that we see as challenges. So to Matt's point, we have focused on the low code, no code piece to empower the business user, the domain experts, to understand that. So it's to allow the business to separate the specialist data scientists, one, from the day-to-day piece, and to actually allow them to do the higher value work, but also then to put the power of data science and semantic search, multimodal search, both temporal and spatial, into the domain experts. You know, so where we see is one challenge is you have a data scientist, but they may actually be a domain expert in the data that they're looking at. So we're allowing them that. And it's really allowing that to empower the users out of the box with AI. The other piece we would see is we're looking around pattern search, understanding patterns, understanding the context, the data. And then once we see a pattern, what we can say is, I want to be notified every time a pattern like that occurs, alert me. So if you were to take it in kind of the financial services, it would be when I see one of the ones that we certainly worked with is Phoenixing. So it's a specific case around companies which close down and another company with shared directors open up again within 6 months. We have the ability to teach Minerva that pattern. Every time it sees that pattern, alert us. And it also can go back and historically and say, show me all the patterns where that has happened historically, or show me contracts which got awarded to non-PPE companies, but keep searching for that. And then the other piece that we have about it is that we have the ability to reach across what we call data silos. So it's recognizing that data exists in multiple different places, ingesting all that data into a single, what we're kind of calling a data universe, for want of a better term, and then looking at that as a kind of augmented piece, and then creating that's completely searchable, but searchable not just from a textual point of view, but searchable from a semantic point of view, from a spatial, from temporal. So it's taking within Minerva a huge amount of different capabilities into a single product that is low code, no code, that not only allows you to search the data, highlight actionable insights, but then to find the different patterns, but also to search for patterns in the data. But I think it's probably best for whoever asked that question to reach out directly, and I can give a more comprehensive answer than 2 minutes, I think.
Thanks, Brendan. For a technophobe like me, Andy, I was particularly interested as you started to explain the difference between RPA and API. I'm very much on the services side of financial services rather than the fintech side. But what do you see the benefits offered by the use of RPA by Robot Exchange as opposed to a wider integration through API?
So I do come from a technical background. I'm purely IT, and I would always go down the API route if I could. I think the reality is that a lot of our even multinational clients have constraints around what they can do from an IT development perspective. And what API gives you is a very controllable way of integration with external platforms. But that assumes two things. Firstly, that you have the development resource, but also the regression testing resource in order to enable that. And that's a huge amount of resource generally in the more complex platforms. What the Robot Exchange robots give you is the ability to automate systems that are non-API'd, as well as systems that need to integrate where one side has got an API, but the other side hasn't. And the robots can sit between those, so we can consume an API feed, JSON, for instance, as well as, and then log on to the legacy platform and update the legacy platform. So it's a way of giving an impression of being fully integrated digitally, and in fact you are, but you haven't got that overhead of IT development resource as well as regression testing tail on any of those projects.
Okay, thank you. Brendan, sorry, there's another question there in from the audience around, does Minerva allow the integration of open source, deep web, and indeed dark web data in developing pattern matches?
I think, again, I'm going to say it's all about the context. So we're an agnostic about the data. I think that question I definitely like to explore a little bit more. To be honest with you, we don't, once we get the data, we can search any pattern you want. So it's really ingesting the data and getting that data and starting to figure it out. You know, the technology has really been around searching for patterns, highlighting patterns as just one element of it, but also doing it in low code, no code base. So without knowing in detail the use case, I think it's probably a qualified yes,
okay,
if that works.
Okay. I have a question for all of you around, you know, the FS market is complex and vast, and buying tech can be difficult and laborious. So how do you think that banks and fintech companies such as yourselves could work together to overcome potential barriers? Maybe start with you, Matt. Have you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest change that we found has been readiness to engage from the business lines themselves. I mean, you've heard an awful lot from us, quite rightly, about how our different platforms are designed for business users, not technology users. That doesn't mean technology users can't use them, obviously. But there's so much clamour coming from the business to be able to get things done rather than have to request data and then be sent an interpretation of what they asked for. Business teams are saying they want to get it done, and they're either looking to implement platforms they can use or accessing web services for data feeds or solutions. So how they can overcome that better is to just have more sandbox type environments, in my opinion. being able to say, here's somewhere staging that allows us to be able to onboard an external vendor in a way that doesn't require me to go through my legacy old procurement system. And fundamentally, you know, if you can update a procurement system with the capacity to be able to deal with companies who are agile like we are, who are likely to develop things much more quickly in a targeted way around data, then that's going to help immensely.
Okay, Andy, have you any thoughts on that?
So we take a bet on our own technology. So generally with clients who are inexperienced in terms of buying RPA services, we will offer a free proof of concept where we'll come in and we'll capture the requirements, we'll manage that process documentation, we'll then size that and develop it and allow the client to use our RPA technology for a month before then making a decision in terms of whether, because we believe that RPA is the product to go to if you want to be able to get a quick return on investment.
And Brendan, have you any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I think the evolution of cloud, to Matt's point, has allowed, and to Andy's point, has allowed us all to stand up sandboxes pretty much overnight. Okay. The other thing is the evolution, or the speed of evolution in all the areas that we work in is so outstandingly scary that limiting yourself to a supplier that has been around for 15 years, has 1,000 employees and 70 to 100 reference customers is a blind spot. You know, if you want to be competitive, it is a thing of understanding and actually actively seeking innovation, actively engaging with suppliers like ourselves. You know, I don't, you know, we offer proof of concepts, Andy offers proof of concepts, I'm sure Matt offers proofs of concept. Like we are so comfortable in our tech, we're allowing you to use it for free. If you don't want to use it after a month, that's great. But the great thing that as a customer you get is you get access to leading edge technology, to companies that are agile, to companies that are responsive, that actually will grow with you and is going to be more responsive to your needs. Because actually what we all talk about, and you've heard it again, is what's the business benefit, what's the business value, what's the use cases, etc., etc. But we live by that. It's not that we have a product department of 1,000 people that actually, you know what, we've got a 6-month backlog of development, get in the queue.
Okay, thanks. Brendan, there you mentioned the pace of change, and actually we're very nearly out of time, so this could will be our last question. But you mentioned the pace of change. Matt, you mentioned earlier about the importance of engagement, and Andy as well about the importance of engagement with people and that human connection. You know, there's been so much discussion globally around the adoption of technology within financial services and the potential impact of the future of AI, the future of work, the future of job roles within the sector. Where do you see the future? How do you see that kind of ending up, if you like, within the financial services industry?
I
start with Brendan.
I just spoke up first. I think fundamentally, to me, AI, gotta look at it. It's here and it's going to be within everything that we do. Okay. The other thing is to understand that AI is a large umbrella. So if you talk to nerds like Andy, Matt, myself, it'll be okay, AI, but is that NLP? Is it this? Is it that? Etc. Etc. So there's multiple different parts of that. And what I think you will see is innovative companies like ourselves are going to bring you a business function that AI is involved in that is going to drive change within your organization. And it's really how you want to adopt that change within the organization. Is it to improve your customer experience? Is it to improve employee engagement? Is it to improve just your overall performance? And I think I'll leave it over to Matt and Andy now to.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll jump in as well now in enthusiastic fashion. Yeah, absolutely. I think if you imagine that maybe I don't know, 10 years ago, people start kind of talking about digital transformation in a kind of slightly more worried way because there's a risk of disintermediation. And then you've got maybe 5 years ago, you've got firms that are starting up that are data natives. So digital natives and data natives. Realistically, now it's AI native. That's the reality. For me, that means, you know, Fiona Brown, who heads up our AI team, she's really, really strong on building things that are explainable from the word go. So it's about being able to say explainable AI. It's not some kind of mystic dark box that no one understands how it works. It's about being able to explain every decision and make sure that you need to retrain a model or rationalize it. But again, that's right now. It is happening. So it's about, as all of us, as we understand that the world of tech is now AI native, it's about making sure that as well, our role to play in that is hugely important from an ethical point of view. The AI isn't going to bring ethics to the table. Humans are responsible for that bit. So human in the loop, AI native, that's 2021. Heck, that's probably 2019, to be perfectly honest.
I guess my view is it depends on how you apply it in reality. But I think personally, I'm optimistic that AI is going to make a big positive difference to human beings, because ultimately that's what technology should be doing. And so I'm pretty confident that, you know, the next 10 years to 20 years is going to show that actually humans have been doing things that have been really difficult for them to manage from a mental perspective. And I think AI starts to pick up and automation starts to pick up and start to do those types of activities, allowing our humans to actually do something a little bit more rewarding.
That's a lovely thought to finish on. Thank you so much, and thank you all three of you for your time today, and thanks to our audience and for the questions that came through. I know the guys would be delighted to follow up if you've any questions, whether it's with Matt for virtual coffee or more discussions with Andy and Brendan as well. Thank you all, and look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.